Hello, I'm Jim Roberts, host of Senior Living in Alexandria. This is a monthly program that's put on by Senior Services in Alexandria, and its intent is to provide useful information to not only to seniors, but family, friends, caregivers, service providers, those in the community that have a need for or a desire for better information on that can be available to seniors. We've done this program a number of months, but we have a special topic that I think concerns us all today. We're going to talk a little bit about dementia, and then equally in the second half, we're going to talk about some of the solutions, or one program solution that's confronted in Alexandria. I've got a guest today that knows a lot about this, but I wanted to frame this discussion with a couple of statistics. I'm sure that many of you know this, but I'll remind you. Dementia, there's 11 types of it. Alzheimer's is about 60%. There's often characterization of it as only Alzheimer's, but there's a lot of other types that occur for various reasons. In 2009 in the United States, there were 5.8 million people that were victims of, had cases of Alzheimer's, and that's expected to grow exponentially to 14 million by 2050. There's an enormous cost of this, both in terms of the individual, but also in terms of family, friends, caregivers, medical services, and so forth. So it's important to know what can be done about it. I'm pleased that Nicole McMonigle Knight is here with me today. She's a consultant to Dementia Care Connections, a private organization, but she also took the lead in helping organize a dementia-friendly community in Herndon, and that's the experience we want to learn about, how it's translated to Alexandria in the second half of the program. So without further ado, Nicole, tell us a little bit about how you got into the dementia care business and your personal background. What brought you to this?
Well, thank you for having me here today. I had spent the past 19 years in healthcare and the past 10 years working in memory care communities before starting my own private practice. So I am a dementia consultant. I see families in their homes and caregivers and work with individuals with memory impairment.
How did that translate? How did you get involved with well, tell me first, I understand there's a movement, Dementia Friendly. What is that? What are the origins of it?
Sure, so it's a national collaboration, multi-state, and what they're looking to do is work with different sectors in the communities and educate families, caregivers, the general population about what it means to have dementia, what that impact is to them, and then how they can become what's called dementia friendly.
So there's a national organization that's now translated into states and then into communities. Do they provide a framework or correspondence on what's happening in one community that might be used in another? Is that the nature of it?
Yes, there are some general guidelines and things to follow for communities that are interested in doing so. However, whichever way direction you decide to take, the community itself, they're very supportive. I know a lot of different communities tend to share ideas instead of reinventing the wheel. So everyone seems to be pretty open with that, and that way we can, make it a better place one community at a time.
What was the need for this? How would you characterize the knowledge of dementia in the general population, and how does this fit into that?
I think there's a lot that people don't know about dementia. It can be a very scary thing for a lot of people to hear, and people tend to have a bias of what they think it looks like, and they tend to be surprised of what it actually is. Especially in different sectors of the community, they're not sure, how they can fit in with their business or their place in the community, and therefore they don't know how to really react with it.
So you're the bridge between, or dementia-friendly programs are the bridge between that lack of knowledge or perhaps fear and maybe some substantive action and how people might fit into a community-based solution. Is that
exactly?
Right?
And helping people understand that there are resources that can help those in the community, and what those resources can be.
How did you get into the dementia-friendly movement?
Sure. So I was approached by Tony Reinhardt, who is actually our leader for the action team. She had been working with memory care and dementia care and with seniors and older adults for quite some time, many years, and she pulled together a list of professionals that are in the community, people of different backgrounds, so those that worked in senior living, others that worked in home care or the banking industry, and as well as people in hospice and the faith community.
So any stakeholder that had an interest in, if not active involvement in dementia, she created a coalition of those interests.
Yes.
And was this in Herndon, I think?
This is in the town of Herndon. So when we look at the town of Herndon, we're really looking at the 4 square miles, the actual town. So we got some support from Lisa Merkel, the mayor there, and some from local officials, and they're very supportive for the initiative.
So tell me the history or the progression. How did that develop? How did you do that? What did you do?
Sure. So in early 2018 is when they started forming the action team, and were writing letters and achieved support from the officials, as I mentioned. But what happened is they pulled the group together, and we kind of looked to see, what do we want to concentrate on? What does this look like for the town of Herndon? And really identified the sectors of businesses and decided to tackle one at a time. We decided to go with the place of worship. So we thought the parish sector would be a good place to start. And from there, we moved on to other sectors as well.
What have been some accomplishments that you've made in that time?
Sure. So we had trained approximately 300 parishioners in the churches in the town of Herndon. And then we moved on to first responders and the police. So the Herndon police were very receptive to bringing us in to train. And first responders, and now we've gone to start with the restaurant sectors. Town of Herndon has about 300 restaurants in it. So we can't tackle them all, and not all would be appropriate for Dementia Friendly. So we've kind of whittled them down to what would be good restaurants to start with.
What would be the conversation you'd have with a restaurant owner in terms of their awareness of or doing something about dementia?
So we put together some letters to take with them first, and talking about the initiative and just kind of letting them know what we're looking to do. Some of them may have a personal or family interest themselves, and others may notice that maybe their clientele or their customers that are coming in, that this would be something great for them. Some are receptive, and others are not receptive. But we're really talking about how can we make this so everybody has a place to go, and we can make this successful for everyone in the community.
Okay. We're running out of time for this segment, and I really want to thank you and appreciate your coming in, giving us some background on this program. We want to translate it after the break. We'll go and talk a little bit how it's being translated in Alexandria. Are you working with the folks in Alexandria? I think they're a little behind. I think you told me Herndon was the first in the state, and Alexandria is following.
Yes, Herndon was the first in the state, and since then there's other communities in the area, even in Northern Virginia, that are looking to start. So I think it's great that we are able to help. There's representatives from community action teams at Herndon, each of them kind of helping out some of the other communities too, just to be there as an advisor, just give ideas, help them get started. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and appreciate that introduction to Dementia Friendly, and we'll talk a little bit more about it after the break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it's time for Madison Reeder, the famous cook, nutritionist, and dietitian. Our famous cook is here with today, recipes for seniors, and it's summertime, and looks like you've got something easy, simple, and cool, which is the kind of food we want. So, Madison, what is it this month?
So today we're going to be making a tomato basil salad. This is one that's my mom has made forever. Whenever we have company over, we're sitting by the pool. It's actually a side dish, but by adding a protein, it quickly becomes the main event.
Oh, okay.
So this one is extremely easy. It uses a lot of fresh ingredients. I'm excited to show you how we can put that together really quickly.
Let's do it. All right.
All right.
What do you have?
The star of the show, as you can see from our bowl here, is our tomatoes. They give us a ton of color. I love that for summertime. We get lots of really great antioxidant properties, vitamin C from our tomatoes.
Oh, yeah.
So they're a great thing to add in our diet because we can still get sick in the summer. A lot of times our immune systems are not ready for an attack if someone around us is ill. So we want to keep those immune systems in a good place by adding that vitamin C. So
what are the green leaves?
We'll get to that. That will
Okay.
be some fresh
Sorry.
basil. Yes.
Oh, fresh basil.
Yes, and
Ooh.
that is extremely important too. But with the tomatoes, I just got these little cherry tomatoes. I like the ones that have different colors. I just like the colors to it. They have a little bit of a different flavor. Your red tomatoes, a little bit more bitter. Your yellow and your orange will be a little bit sweeter. So it adds a little bit of fun in every bite.
That's inclusive with tomatoes.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Right. That's,
What's important with your tomatoes is you want to cut them in half. And it's got to be the small little cherry tomatoes. The big ones are just too watery for this type of a dish. So with your tomato, it's really important that you make sure you cut it with a serrated knife. See how it's ridged there?
Oh, yeah.
If you use a regular knife, like this one, you're just going to smush through that tomato.
mush it down. It gets, oh, that's a mess.
Exactly. It's a mess. It's not as desirable when you're eating it as well. So to cut your tomato, you're going to hold it, pinch it between your fingers like this, and then just in one swoop, cut with your serrated. It makes it really, really simple, and you're going to add that to your salad. So that's your first step is you're cutting your tomatoes.
And you can make any volume you want. It's entire.
Correct.
No measurements.
Correct. So I would do for every 1 cup of tomatoes, 1/4 to 1/2 of mozzarella, depending on what your preference is. We're going to add our mozzarella next because that's the second big component of your salad. What's important about your mozzarella is you want it to be fresh. The shredded kind just doesn't do the same thing, doesn't give the same flavor as your fresh does. You can still buy it in a container like this. Sometimes it'll be packaged like vacuum sealed almost. This in the water or in a little bit of oil or something is fine too. So I'll just take a slotted spoon like this.
Oh, so you don't need the juice of the
Correct.
container. I see.
I will take my slotted spoon and I'll put my mozzarella on a cutting board, and we're actually with the serrated knife again so that we are not mushing our mozzarella. It has some kind of a firmness to it. We're going to just dice up some of that mozzarella. You can put the entire pearl, the circles are called little pearls. You can put the entire thing in if you want, but I like to cut it so that there's a little bit in every bite.
That's statistically, you've doubled the exposure. That's all I can say.
Yes.
All right.
That fresh mozzarella
Oh, boy.
paired with the tomatoes just has such a special...
mozzarella and tomatoes are
a perfect pairing. Perfect pairing. So we'll add a couple more of these mozzarella pearls in there. Then I'm going to let you grab that spoon over there
Over here?
and give it a preliminary mix. We'll add this
preliminary mix.
Yes.
Meaning there's more to come.
There is more to come. So as you can see here,
Oh boy.
in our mix here, we have some green. You pointed that out right away because the color really stands out. So we have some fresh basil. What's important is the basil has to be fresh for this recipe. Otherwise, it's just not quite the same. So fresh basil, a lot of times at the grocery store, we talked about this earlier. Where can you find fresh basil? It'll be in the produce section, sometimes in a container like this, sometimes in a little baggie. You're just gonna grab something like this. Sometimes you can even buy a whole plant and you can pot it and keep it growing, but for our purposes.
Wonderfully fragrant. That smells.
Oh, I wish everybody could smell it. It's just delightful.
Okay.
A little tip for chopping basil that I recently learned. You want to take your leaves and kind of line them up. See, like that? Lay them out. You want to roll them.
Roll them.
Yep, roll them together.
Is this your innovation that you discovered?
This actually isn't. I read this in a wonderful little cookbook that was really, really helpful to me.
Look at that.
And we want to slice.
Rolled basil. Who would have
Roll
thought?
and slice. And the reason for that is because basil it's a leaf. It's still a little bit delicate. We want to make sure we're not being too hard on it.
Okay.
Something else you can do for seniors, if you're worried about cutting, you're thinking I had to cut the mozzarella, I had to cut the tomatoes, you can tear it as well. You just tear it into pieces. Just being gentle with it. That's perfectly
I'm going to roll
acceptable.
mine from now on.
That's a really great tip. I'd never heard of that before, and it's really made it much
Boy,
easier
does that smell good.
for me.
Okay.
So we're adding, I'd say about 1/2 cup of diced, rolled, shredded basil.
Basil.
Yep. And you can smell, it smells
Oh,
so
yeah.
delightful. So you could really stop there and let that be the entirety of your recipe because those flavors go so well together.
That's tempting, but let's go on.
We're not going to stop there. So the next thing I did is I minced some garlic. You
Okay.
can buy it pre-minced. That's perfectly fine, or mince it yourself. And I'm going to add it into our salad, just taking a spoon here. If that seems like a lot of garlic, that was just 1 clove. You can do half, you can use garlic powder, whatever you prefer, but I like fresh for me, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Then the next thing that we're gonna add, it needs a little dressing. It needs another little punch. We've got some sweetness from the tomatoes. Our mozzarella is a little bit more neutral. Got a little punch from that basil, but let's take it one step further. This is 2 tablespoons of a balsamic vinegar, not a vinaigrette, just a vinegar.
Okay. What's that,
Half-
olive oil?
1 teaspoon of olive oil. So we kind of made our own balsamic vinaigrette. And a little bit of oregano. A
Like
little
a
bit.
pinch?
Just a pinch.
Okay.
A little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper to whatever your preference is. We're
Oh,
gonna
my.
pour that over the top. I'm gonna pour that right over there and give it a nice stir. My recommendation for this, you can serve it right now.
Yeah.
It's perfect. But if you leave it sit in the refrigerator for a few hours, or if you make it, let it sit overnight,
Then
those flavors come together and that garlic breaks down in the vinegar and it's a perfect pairing. So I like to sometimes add avocado to this, give it a little creaminess, add some chicken to it for some protein, and then it's a perfect meal for a summer
Or
day.
salad or a side dish or whatever, or just by itself.
Exactly.
And leftovers would be powerful.
Yes, it's great for leftovers because the more it sits, the more those flavors really come together and they become stronger. So I would leave this in the fridge for about 3 to 5 days, depending on the temperature of your fridge, how old your tomatoes and your mozzarella were when you got them. Did you buy them and then wait a couple days before you actually made it? So depending on those factors, but this is a great one. I like to make it at the beginning of the week and have it throughout the week as time goes.
I think we should try it.
I think we should too.
Do you want it in here?
Sure, we can put a little bit in a bowl, give it a try,
All right,
give it a little taste there.
of each.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here, have a fork.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna just take a tiny little bite here. Some mozzarella.
I'm gonna get a mozzarella and a tomato in the same bite, and maybe I'm gonna load it up with a basil leaf.
That's perfect. All 3 in one bite.
The spices are really good.
Thank you.
And mozzarella just is automatic with tomato.
I agree.
That's very good.
Thank you. It's a great pairing. It's perfect for summer. It's refreshing. Lots of fresh flavors and good nutrition.
You've done it
Go wrong.
again.
Thank you.
You've done it again. Here we are, another great meal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madison.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're back, and we're in the middle of our session, important session today on dementia and what some communities are doing about it. We want to turn now to a little bit more about what's going on in Alexandria and try to bring that information to you. I have 2 guests. I'm here with Jane King. She's been here, I think this is her 3rd or 4th program, I can't remember exactly, but she's an experienced veteran of this show. And she is on the Alexandria Commission on Aging, and she's the lead on the Age Friendly initiative, including Dementia Friendly communities. So we'll want to hear from her. And then in addition, I'm here with Jackie Barbarito. She's the Assisted Living Administrator at Goodwin House, and she's tailoring that program to both to the community, but also within Goodwin House. So they both bring a perspective on Alexandria. Jane, let's start with you and tell us a little bit about what the Commission on Aging is doing about a dementia-friendly community. How did that come about?
About a year ago, the City Council approved a plan that we had done that has 6 goals. It's essentially a community plan that ultimately affects all ages. It covers housing, transportation, communications, social participation and respect and social inclusion, health, of course, and supportive services, and also civic engagement and volunteerism.
Okay.
Given those criteria that we were working with and trying to assess what Alexandrians need, it became obvious, because of transportation, housing, etc., they're all important for families dealing with dementia, that we should include Dementia Friendly. And we were aware of other communities that were doing this. So we actually established a plan to do that. We were very fortunate that Goodwin House, after the plan had been approved, said they would help us with the effort, administer this, and the part that will be really important for the Commission on Aging and others in Alexandria, such as At Home in Alexandria, and of course Senior Services of Alexandria and our Division of Aging, is all the outreach and education we do.
Okay.
Senior Services has taken one of the Commission's ideas and run with it, and that is what the people we call senior ambassadors, who've been trained to understand the services and programs available in the city, and they go to their communities. It could be a church, it could be an athletic group, it could be any kind of community, and educate their communities about what's available. Caregivers can have a terrible time dealing with family members with dementia if they don't know the services that are available to them, or how to make a house safe, or what transportation is available to them. And I think the whole idea that we're working with social respect and inclusion really tells you where we want to go. And we would like to see caregivers and those with dementia feel included and welcome in the city no matter where they are.
Was it difficult so you basically grabbed a hold of Dementia Friendly movement and incorporated it according to the way that it might fit in Alexandria?
Exactly. Dementia Friendly Alexandria and Goodwin House and its work with the organization that leads it in Virginia have been very helpful. We were aware of Dementia Friendly America, which really sets some of the guidelines.
The national organization.
The national organization.
What would be an example of, say you're working with a congregation, what kinds of things, what's the training, and how do you then enable them to present it, hopefully to their congregation or a wider audience?
There are videos that we could show, but, and in fact, I looked at some of them last night in preparation for today, and for, if you're talking about it to a bank or if you're talking to a restaurant, you would help to define how to deal with people who are coming in for that particular business. I think somebody with dementia who's in a bank with a caregiver gets very nervous. They may understand that they're not quite sure of what they're doing, in which case the teller, whatever the bank employee should be working very hard to make that person comfortable, to understand where they are. And that can change in terms, say, if you're a faith-based community, or as I said, a bank or a restaurant, it might be somewhat different. So there would be separate training for those individuals.
In the dispersed audiences you mentioned, you try to tailor it to the kinds of incidents that would occur.
Exactly.
A restaurant might be mobility issues, financial issues,
or even
lighting.
Lighting, yes,
Okay.
reading. Another example, for example, and they're already engaged with the work Jackie and I are doing, is the police department. They would run into very different, perhaps a lost person who's still driving. That does happen. So their training would be more significant in some
generally
ways.
youthful and maybe not as attuned to some of the issues that might
Right,
confront
so
a senior.
exactly.
That's dementia.
So that they would understand how to deal with it.
I want to get to Jackie in a second, but one more question. How broadly have you been able to build this network in terms of reaching segments of the Alexandria community? What kind of?
We're still in a planning stage in some ways, but the first two will be emergency services and the police department. Just to get them started, and then we will be moving out to the others.
Have all the different segments been generally supportive, enthusiastic, reluctant? What's the degree of adoption?
There has been some work that we have done with the banks already, and they certainly seem interested because fraud can occur there too. And so
sure.
it's very important to identify people who may be having trouble with their bank accounts.
Yeah, no, the trust issue of who you're working with.
I think there is a big interest because our action group for this initiative, it's comprised of someone from the seminary, someone from the police department, different organizations. So we really have a lot of sectors represented just within the action team.
And the police department's already done it, doing
Yeah, the
wonderful
police
work.
department's
Is
wonderful.
this a formal, or like do you have meetings and take minutes and everybody shares information? Or is it periodic and responding to a particular need, or how's it organized?
So we have a monthly meeting at Goodwin House. We take minutes.
Of Goodwin House residents or
No,
broad?
of the action team with different sectors
Okay, okay.
represented.
Tell us how it works at Goodwin House then.
So-
or your role in it first, and how does it work in Goodwin House?
So dementia has always been a priority for Goodwin House. It's a focus of our strategic plan. So when I heard about the age-friendly plan and that Dementia Friendly is already incorporated into it, and then I heard Dementia Friendly Herndon started, so I was like, okay, we got to do this. How can we get involved? And I think, like Jane said, they needed an organization to take the lead and start get the ball rolling.
When did it start in Alexandria, and how would you measure progress?
So we received the designation officially in April. We had 2 meetings prior to receiving the designation, and now we're starting to work on the actual training that we're going to roll out.
Okay. We're just about out of time. They will post contacts, phone numbers, and websites on the screen, but is there any other way that people can make themselves aware or learn more about this, that part of your programs you're doing, outreach or information?
Like Jane mentioned, the senior ambassadors through senior services.
Okay.
Yeah, senior services,
Okay.
and it would be great to have a senior ambassador who specialized in
That would be
dementia friendly.
amazing.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah,
great. Okay.
yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. This is a deep topic, but I'm delighted to know about Dementia Friendly as a movement and how it's coming to Alexandria. And in fact, it's based on others' experience, and we can learn from that. So thank you very much. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else did too. It's a
Thank
valuable
you.
program. Thank you very much.